I'm Rob Grimm from RGG EDU, and I'm sitting with Erik Almas. So Erik, let's talk a little bit about marketing. Marketing is kind of the white elephant in the room in many ways. It's a tough one for photographers, particularly to stay diligent with it over a long period of time. So give me kind of a rundown of what you do, your approach to marketing.
Wow. So my approach to marketing is kind of what you said. It is consistency. It's hard to know effectively which one of the things you do for marketing and what reaches people. It's more of a brand building so that you try to reach them in many ways, so that rises as a tide and they eventually will know about you and then hire you. Rarely do I get we saw you in this and that specific place and it's perfect and we want to hire you. It's more of a long-term push that in the end will leave a brand recognition in Erik Almas photography, and I'm on their radar. There's a awareness there about who I am and what kind of work I do. So when they have that kind of campaign, I come up and they think of me and they call me. So to get there, I have done pretty much the same stuff with minimal change in design for 15 years. It's been a long, long time.
Right. That's a long slog.
Yeah.
But I think one of the keys that you said right there is very minimal change in design. You're not coming out with a new look, which makes you feel like a new photographer. Your design is the same. It's image driven to build that brand.
Okay. So when I send things out in different manners and try to reach people, it's always with the intention of driving traffic back to my website. So there's not a lot of fancy stuff. A lot of photographers do big fold-outs, big books, sort of more elaborate things. I do those once a year, but they are then very specifically targeted to show a very specific kind of work. The whole purpose of the marketing I do is to keep it simple so that it is branded and it's not cluttered and it's not something that represents all of who I am, but it's going to create curiosity so they come to my website. It's all about creating an ecosystem between all the stuff I do with email blasts, with postcards, with placement in source books, with social media, so that they come to my website and see more of the work, maybe read the blog to get to know me better. So it's a push out there. It starts with sort of a tiered sort of marketing where we do really wide email newsletters.
When you say wide, how wide? How many people get your email newsletters?
20,000 people between the US and Europe.
Yeah, that's wide. That's big.
So we don't filter those. It's pretty much everyone. We do take out the groups of people that's completely inappropriate, but we do try to push it out there. You never know what creatives are working on one account today that will work a different place tomorrow.
Yeah.
Creatives do move around a lot.
all the time.
All the time. So that's sort of the basis of it. Then there's postcards that goes out every quarter. And again, it's been super, super consistent. That's about 8,000 postcards that reaches the US. Then it gets into the more special stuff. There's researched names and clients of people that I want to work with. It's what we call our top 200. And that is larger than the 200, but there's clients there that I want to work for, that I aspire to work for, that's in one bucket. And then there's the people that I'm really appropriate for, that do the work that I do now.
Right.
So those are the ones that's specifically targeted. And we reach those once a month throughout the year through obviously the email blasts and the postcards that I talked about. But we have those in a grid, huge spreadsheet that says these people are going to be reached once a month by either myself or my agents, in-person visits. Somehow we're going to reach them once a month. It used to be 7 times that people would see your name before they remembered. Today I think it's past 20. I saw.
Really, that's interesting. You think it's not only well exceeded 7, but it is 20.
So I saw an older interview with Anthony Robbins a couple of years ago, and he said it was 18 impressions in his lecture. So let's call it 18 or past 20, but
adjusted for the
we
rate of
pay
inflation,
less and less attention to this shit around us. And so for people to know who you are and for us to create brand awareness, we have to be consistent and we have to do it all the time. You know, I say to my agents, maybe once a month is not enough, but we want to be conscientious, right, and not bombard people. So we have stuck to in our list that once a month we're going to reach these people in my top 200.
Right.
So that's kind of the extent of it. We do Ad Edge, which is a source book. I think that goes out to about 8,000 for the larger book and 15,000 for the smaller. We advertise in there. I do Archive, which is a big chunk from my marketing budget.
Yeah, Archive. I've done it a couple times, and it's expensive. But I'm inconsistent with Archive, which is bad.
Which is bad. My agents, early on when I came on, they say, oh, let's make a splash, let's do a page where we announce you and stuff. I said, that's uninteresting to me. Because that truly is a brand builder. Mm-hmm. I don't think people go there to look for photographers. They go in there to look for good advertising work, to be inspired. So if I want to be an Archive, it's going to be over a longer period of time. And now I've had the inside back cover for 2 years. I'm going to continue doing that for another year.
Yeah, hold that position. That's a good one.
And then, well, so here's the thing, right? I think things are changing. I used to devour Archive every time I got it to see what other photographers did and what good marketing there was. And lately, I barely take the plastic off it. Mm-hmm. It shows up in the mail and it lays there. Right. And I think if other art directors are like me, spending more time social media and online platforms and blogs and less time with that format, I think my habits is probably mirroring theirs quite a bit. And with that effort that I put into Archive, I could probably hire someone, not probably, I can hire someone full-time to only do social media.
Right.
But that's the price point of having the inside back cover. So, that's in a transition for me. Do I go from the traditional marketing to the new media marketing? So we'll see. But that's kind of what I do today. And I still do in-person visits. I think that's super important. I do once, twice a year. I travel to either New York, San Francisco, where I'm at, LA. I combine it with work or other travel, and I go and see people. My agents do the same. And the specialty piece I mentioned. One featured all the composite work. So there's picture on one side, all the pieces on the other. Did one on lifestyle. Now we're just shipping out one that's on motion. So there's a still picture and then the motion story on one. So you could see that the two really fall together. So it's telling more about my capabilities as a photographer. So that's kind of the extent of it.
But that's extensive. It's a lot. Particularly, the lesson here is also consistency. I think one of the things that is so important for photographers to understand, you have to be consistent, and the reason is for growth, your growth, that you want to show to people, right? Because I think the same people are looking at Workbook year after year, or at Edge year after year, and they're looking at your postcards. And correct me if I'm wrong, or tell me if you kind of support this at all. I think that while they might not be watching, like they might not be looking for Erik Almas all the time, they are seeing what you're doing. And over a period of time, they're seeing the progression of your work. And after all those impressions, it starts to resonate with them. And that growth starts to click, and then they really start paying attention to it.
Yeah. So one thing we didn't talk about, which is an extension of this, that's social media, right? So they follow you in all you do with all the marketing. The trick is, though, that they will connect with that and then go to the website and then social media.
Right.
And then like you or follow you on social media, because then you have a way to consistently put your work in front of them. They call it top of mind awareness. If they have a campaign, there's a reason for. I'm skipping a little bit here, but let's backtrack. There's a reason for Budweiser, who's in this town, for AT&T, for all these big companies, to every day reach you as a consumer and tell them that this is the best beer or this is the best cell phone service. If they were so unique and we are the best always, they didn't need to market at all. Right. But that in the time that you're making a decision to purchase something new, you would want them to think of that product. In the same way, we should put ourselves out there, so when there's a campaign coming up, they should think of us as potential photographers for that job, right? To sit there and think that they're going to find you is not going to happen. We got to put ourselves out there enough times consistently so that when they get a job, they think, oh, Erik Almas would be appropriate for this.
Right.
I don't want to be forgotten. And with this market we have, if I don't send out a marketing piece in half a year, we talked about it, I'd probably be irrelevant.
Drop out.
I would not have the top of mind awareness in the marketplace, which I need to be successful. So As it's shifting from all the traditional marketing I talked about into social media, it's important to stay active in that space, both for blogs, Instagram, and Facebook. The interaction in Facebook get way less, but people notice it more so than liking it or engaging with it. They scroll through it, they see it there. I have not a lot, but there are art directors that email me and say, we saw the pictures from Norway, they're amazing. So people are paying attention to social media, and it's a very, very nice way to send people stuff or make people aware of what you're doing without pushing it onto them, because they've chosen to see it. So there's a big effort for any photographer to create that awareness in the marketplace.
So I think in many ways, first and foremost, realize that you're a brand. Photographers need to realize that their name is a brand. They need to spend time building it, giving it a consistent message.
It's so important.
Right.
To think that, okay, so to not think of this, if you want to work for someone and you want to do it consistently, if you want to work for them once, don't bother building a brand. Go knock on the door to the one you want to work for, and that's it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do brand building. But if you want to consistently work as a photographer, either in editorial or advertising or in any other capacity, you have to market yourself in this market that we have. There's no other way than you building a brand or telling a story about who you are into the marketplace. I can't say how important it is. Photographers can't sit there and think that, oh, it's not for me, I'm too shy, it's not a part of who I am. I hear all these excuses for not putting ourselves out there. In the same time, we're unafraid of creating an image of ourselves to our friends on Facebook. And in some ways, right, it's the same thing. We're branding our lives, we're branding what we want people to perceive us as in Facebook. We show us traveling and having fun, and we rarely show pictures of me being fucking lazy, laying there on the couch, eating popcorn. Right? Because we don't want to brand ourselves as that person, right, even though we all do it at times.
Right, we're making our life as exciting as it can be for everybody, so they're almost envious. It is almost a creation of envy in the people around you, right? Exactly.
So we should do the same thing for marketeers. We should make a desirable image of ourselves in the marketplace so they want to work with us.
Right.
So for photographers to make these excuses that I'm not good to market myself or I'm not good a business person, just think of it as creating another profile for yourself on Facebook that's geared toward the business community. That's really a good way to look at it.
I think the other message that you said that's so important is being consistent, but also keeping the design consistent, not changing it a lot. I know that's something that I really got caught up with early on, particularly at the first studio that I was involved with, and with my wife being a designer. Everything was too design heavy versus it being image heavy. And really and truly, as a photographer, I think you need to have smart design, but let the design fall away and have it be image and information driven. Image being what your style is, what your image is, and information being how do they get in touch with you. That's really kind of all they need. They're not going to remember the design.
No, I so agree with you. Has to be consistent. Okay, so there's a reason there's logos out there, right? It creates something that's recognizable instantly to that brand. And the same way, if we design something that we choose to send out, it should be consistent over a long time so that, again, it's identifiable to you and your brand.
Right.
So the image just changes, but the stuff around it, the minimal design or whatever, however you choose to present yourself should be a part of that brand building.
Right.
Just as you present yourself one way on Facebook, it should be this same consistent way done around you when you do it to the agencies or the magazines or whatever your marketplace is, it should be done that same way.
In some ways, I think you almost have to think of it as a logo. Like it's honestly big news when a company like Pepsi changes their logo.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because all of a sudden the look shifts and that kind of rattles people's cages. But that consistent message that gets out there time and time again, it just drives it home and it sticks in people's minds. And as photographers, we need to do that. We need to be very consistent and not engage in a ton of change.
And it should be consistent not only in one place, but it should be consistent over all platforms.
Board, yeah.
If you look at my blog, you look at my website, you look at the ads that I do in archive, if you look at, I was about to say Ad Edge, but that's not my design, but it's still similar actually to my aesthetic. Right. They all have the same design, same font, same logo, pretty much in the same place on the page. So all that stuff helps me. I like to think it helps me put sort of an aesthetic or brand to my name.
ROI is, return on investment is something that's always really difficult to quantify in many ways. I think in other businesses, there's more of a direct line to it. In photography and in art, I think that's kind of a difficult thing. Do you find that you have a direct line to say, okay, that's making me a bunch of money, that's making me a bunch of money, and that's not working? Or is it more of this kind of slow percolate over years and kind of spread out across the board?
It's the latter.
Yeah.
So we try to ask everyone that hires me about how they heard about me and how they got to hire me.
Right.
And very few people say that there's one specific instance. I got one of my favorite assignments for Don Julio Tequila through one email blast, where that came in right as the guys were concepting. He said, I never look at spam emails. For some reason, I did in that moment. It was perfect for that campaign. And you were always the one I wanted to work for to execute these pictures. But that's one out of many, many assignments. I think that's more lucky than not. So that's the anomaly. Everyone else, they say, well, we always wanted to work with you for a long time. We've seen your work here, we've seen your work there, we've seen it everywhere. There's been this, you've been one of the guys we've been wanting to work with. So you create that through a long time effort. That doesn't happen through sending out one email.
Right. I asked that question even though I knew the answer, and I did so because I wanted you to kind of reinforce that, because I think a lot of photographers want immediate response. They want immediate reaction, and you got to be patient. You got to realize you can't, it's very hard to quantify it with one particular magic bullet, which there is no magic bullet in photography. It is kind of a broad spectrum approach and being consistent.
Yeah. So I've spoken about this before, and it really came out of one question. People said, what would you do different in your photography career? And the one thing that I would do different, truly, is start marketing myself sooner. So I never felt my work was good enough, and I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked till I felt kind of that I had a strong body of work. Mm-hmm. And then I started marketing.
Right.
And then I spent so much time doing the work, and then another 2 years almost marketing before I really got hired.
Right.
So those two efforts got to start at the same time, because it will take 2 years, unless you're that lucky to hit someone right away, like that example for Don Julio I just told you about. But that's the rare occasion. Or if you're crazy talented and you really stand out from the beginning, you can get hired. But for most of us that really spend time honing a craft, the marketing presence got to be built.
Right.
It won't happen overnight. You can't be impatient. You got to commit to it and expect it to take 2 years. Honestly. Maybe even longer today. I mean, it took me 2 years at that time.
Right.
So marketing is an effort that should be started almost immediately. And I think people like discovering new talent. So if you manage to put one good picture out there,
particularly in today's digital age, they absolutely, they want to discover new talent.
So don't think that the work is not good enough to put out there. Put it out as soon as you feel good about one picture, and then keep it going.
Not only that, it's good to show people your progression. You want to show people your growth over time.
Exactly.
Like I said, they might not be seeking you out all the time. They might not be watching you or paying attention to you, but they are seeing what you're doing. And if you're consistent in your messaging, in your branding, in your design, they will see this growth in your images. And one of these days, they will wind up trusting you with a campaign, and you'll get it.
People love watching that process. And in the end, they kind of feel like they know you and seen you sort of progress, and they're excited to work with you. And they always say, oh, we watch your work and this and that and this and that, followed you for a long time. And there's a connection there in that progress that can't be bought or marketed to. It's something that's actually quite unique, I think.
Right. Anything else you want to tell people about marketing? And we've covered quite a bit.
Well, so that was kind of the process. I think people should be unafraid of it. I think there's intimidation about putting yourself out there, but you just got to push that aside.
Right.
You got to accept, if you want to make money as a photographer, you have to somehow market yourself and put yourself out there. So take a deep breath and just say, okay, that's what I have to do to become a working photographer. Right. If you're a wedding photographer, or if you're an advertising or editorial photographer, whatever your marketplace is, define what that is. That's step number one, by the way, which we didn't cover. I talked about my 200. We spent a lot of time defining what that is. So define 2 buckets, the people you want to work for, the people you're appropriate for, and then pursue those. If you have a smaller budget, that's really simple. Pick 30 on each bucket and pursue those 60.
You also touch upon a word that I think is really important and one that's been a huge driving factor in my career, and that's appropriate.
Yeah.
It's frustrating at times, I think, because photographers feel that they're capable. They want that bigger job. They want to move in new directions. But I think it's really important to also know that your work has to be appropriate in many ways for the client, because they have to sell it to their client, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to go out on a limb and get something completely drastic. So, kind of being appropriate might sound like a weird word, but I think is a really important word in understanding who you are as a photographer, to understand who your audience needs to be. You have to fit your audience.
Yep. So we haven't really talked about this, but it goes beyond marketing, but setting your goals about who you want to be as a photographer and pursue those in 2 avenues is quite important. So if one of my goals is to shoot for Vanity Fair, I had it for a long time, but I haven't quite pursued it. Right?
Okay.
I've been too busy doing my advertising work, and I know if I stopped shooting for half a year or a year, I could rebuild a portfolio or a body of work that would be more tailored to them. So even though here's the thing, if you set your goal at one place, you market to them to create an awareness, and then you shoot the work that will sort of fill the gap between where you are and where they are, right? So as the awareness rises about who you are, so does your work. So finding out who's appropriate is one thing, but also finding out who you want to work for and then make your work appropriate.
Right.
So there should be 2 different parameters there, not just seek out the appropriate, but set goals. I mean,
Goals are really important.
Yeah. Who do you want to work for?
Quite honestly, I set them every year. I set goals for my studio, financial goals, what I want to make. I set goals for clients I want to work with. I set goals for equipment that I want to buy or revamp or kind of retool. And I also set personal goals. I write down, my Rob's life goals for 2000, whatever the year is. It's kind of interesting to see at the end of every year how much those goal lists weave together. They're very interlaced, particularly the personal and the work. I'm surprised at how much they interlace every year. It's kind of an interesting process. I think people should do it. It will help you get there. Just writing something down helps you get there.
Okay, so I love that you're bringing this up, because goals are so important, and setting those down on paper is truly important. My marketing plan, this starts with basically what you have. My marketing plan doesn't start with, we're going to do this year again, because we've done it before. Every year I write down my goals. It starts with a little mission statement of what I want to accomplish.
Right.
And then from there it goes into, these are the clients that I want to reach now, right? Some of them are rolled over from the years past. Others are new, other goes away if I worked for them. Absolute Vodka had been on that list for a long time. And when we finally got that job, I sent a bottle of champagne to my agents and crossed it off my list, and it was,
Which felt great.
Yeah. So it doesn't start with, it doesn't really start with those 2 lists that I talk about. It really starts with the goals and who I want to be as a photographer and the pictures I want to create for that year.
Right.
And then reassessing what companies and magazines I want to work for within that. So it's a massive printout that we have. It's 15 wide and probably 20 tall.
Right.
That hangs on the wall. And I think you guys saw it. It was rolled up, sitting there in a corner.
We saw it sitting there. We didn't peruse it. I wanted to. Believe me, I wanted to peek at it.
It was stuck on that cork board.
Yeah.
And that you guys took down from the chimney, I think.
Yeah.
It was,
Right.
And that contains the mission statement, who I want to be and who I want to work for, who those clients are. Right. And that sort of creates the mission for the pictures I take and for the marketing that I do. Because you can't just do marketing to do it. There got to be a purpose of it. And that's where the goals come in.
The other thing I think that for me has been very valuable about goals, I don't make them all the time. I fail. And that kind of pisses me off to a degree. I shouldn't say piss me off, but it does. It motivates me. When I don't achieve my goals at the end of the year, it's okay. I mean, it's not like I'm another failure in life, but it actually motivates me in a new way. And I find that goal kind of transforms for the next year. It becomes something different. It becomes a motivating factor, and somehow I kind of work it in a new way. So I think it's good to also realize that you can fail at your goals. You can fail miserably at your goals, but you're going to find a lesson in there and a way to kind of revamp that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much self-help out there, and the thing about setting goals is to set them so high so you aim high, right?
Right.
There's no reason to say that, oh, I'm going to jump over this table. That's not a goal because you could do it. The goal is I'm going to jump over this building.
Right.
And if you fail at it, you're still done way better than jumping over this table.
Sure. Well, you might land on the 15th floor. Better
Exactly.
view.
So
Right.
setting high goals and aim for them and fail is way better than setting goals that you achieve easily.
Absolutely.
So yes, it's a little bit beyond marketing, but figure out what your goals are and aim your photography to that and aim your marketing to that and build your plan around that purpose.
So Erik, thank you very much for sharing your marketing tips. It's all very sound advice and really, I think, gives people a great understanding of kind of where they need to go and how they need to be patient in the world of marketing, because it's a tough one. We'd like to invite you to explore more of the Erik Almas tutorial at rggedu.com. A lot of work has gone into creating something that is truly unique and really a look into Erik's world. Erik has been more than generous to share his tricks, his tips, his thought processes in something that is quite remarkable.
Thank you.